right, cool. Flatline MMA, episode number 6. I'm Dom. That's Kev. On today's episode, we had a wild weekend, UFC 244, the best card of the year. Definitely didn't disappoint. So I want to get into all those fights because there were some crazy fights there. And then Saturday, UFC Moscow, 2 wild fights. We just want to go over the co-main and the main event. So we'll get into those. But let's just get right into it. UFC 244, like we said before, best card of the year, definitely the most anticipated card of the year. We had the BMF title on the line, the baddest motherfucker title, Jorge Masvidal, Nate Diaz as the main event. Overall, just super crazy. Just wanted to get started from the prelims. We had a very hyped fighter, Johnny Walker, coming in. His octagon time was literally less than 2 minutes in the UFC. He had a lot of hype behind him. He faced off against Corey Anderson, who, he's been a guy in the UFC for a while. He was an Ultimate Fighter winner, but really never the most exciting fighter. So there's never really hype behind him. The UFC was pushing Johnny Walker a lot, and he came in with a vengeance. He made a statement, and he knocks out Johnny Walker in round 1. I don't even think Johnny Walker threw a punch. Kev, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it was a quick one. Like you said, Johnny Walker had a lot of hype, and it seemed like the winner of this fight was going to be, in contention to fight John Jones. So There was a lot of, even though it was a prelim fight, there was a lot behind it. So yeah, it was a quick one. Corey Anderson caught him with a right hand, staggered him, and he couldn't get his feet back underneath him after that, and he just poured it on and got the finish.
Yeah, I mean, just stellar performance. Corey Anderson, he made a statement, man. He got so fired up afterwards. He was like taunting Johnny Walker, like taunting the fans there because, to be completely honest, no one was behind him on this fight. So I don't even blame him. He made a statement. I know he was, talking trash about Dana, how he doesn't support him, do any of that stuff. So, we'll see. I think now I saw John Jones called out Dominic Reyes, so I think they're going to fight next, but it really does make sense for Corey to kind of just sit and wait for the winner of that and then fight Jones next. So, and then just in terms of Johnny Walker, I think he'll be back, man. The dude's an absolute monster. He obviously didn't get to show off all his skills in his, first couple UFC fights. All he was doing was beating people with flying knees and stuff like that. So, I think he'll be back. I think he'll be, better than ever. Obviously, he's a big boy. So, and I would love to see him face John Jones one day, obviously.
Yeah, he's young too. It could be the case where, he's got all these spectacular finishes. He's knocking people out, and they might have just brought him up a little too fast.
Yeah.
I mean, he is, he was knocking out some good competition, but yeah, like you said, he'll be back. I don't think this is going to define him.
Yeah, no, 100%. He will. The kid's a beast. And I agree. I think they did bring him up a little too fast. Even Dana kind of says stuff all the time. They say it about Darren Till. They brought him up so fast and kind of look what happened to him. But cool. So that headlined the prelims there. So, even the fights before that, there were some great fights there. But kind of moving on to the main card, I thought all these fights were actually really good. You got the Kevin Lee, Gregor Gillespie fight. Mm-hmm. Holy shit. That was one of the most spectacular, most violent knockouts ever. Kevin Lee, he's coming off a loss to RDA after going up to welterweight. He said he wanted to challenge himself, come back down to 155 to prove, hey, he's still the real deal. Going up against an absolute killer in Gregor Gillespie, the undefeated Gregor Gillespie. His wrestling pedigree is just unmatched. He's one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. So everyone knew this fight was going to be good. I think a lot of people thought Gregor was going to dominate Kevin Lee, though. And wow, they were wrong, because Kevin Lee, first round, just head kick knockout, stiffened him. But as we say on this show, flatlined him, because Gregor was standing up against the cage, stiffened up like a board, friggin' just KO'd. And dude, props to Kevin Lee, because he came in with absolutely no one having his back. He came in, he put on a performance and beat one of the most dangerous guys in that division and just kind of propelled himself back in conversations with, some of the best 55ers in the world. So what'd you think about that performance?
Yeah, Kevin Lee's had a pretty tough road, You know, he's another one of those young guys that started off in the UFC real well, really long winning streak for a while, up until I believe, yeah, he beat Chiesa until he fought Ferguson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, he had some tough ones. He beat Barboza, lost to Iaquinta again, went up to 170, like you said, lost to Rafael dos Anjos, and now, you know, Gregor Gillespie. It's another tough fight. He's not taking any easy fights,
No.
you know. But yeah, that knockout was insane. That head kick was perfectly timed and put him right out.
Yeah. Again, just props to him because it's like people forget that he's only 27 years old. And I feel like people wrote him off. Like after he lost to RDA, they were like, oh, he couldn't cut it in 155. He couldn't cut it in 170. So they just wrote him off, which is absolutely insane. This kid's 27 years old. And I think now he's training with like Firas Zahabi, and he's training with like GSP's camp dude. So it's like, obviously they taught him, not only how to fight, but I feel like just kind of like how to present himself. I feel like before he was kind of a clown. Like he tried to like do the whole Connor shtick, but I feel like really he just needed the right camp behind him because I always thought, I know we talked about this all the time, Kevin Lee is an all-around great fighter. He has ridiculous wrestling. His striking's awesome. He's great on the ground. And if he just stays focused, I know the weight cut kills him, but he actually said this time, like, he's like, hey, it wasn't easy, but this time it was fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's a dangerous man in 155. And if he sticks with, like, Firas and, like, sticks with that camp and keeps doing what he's doing, I could see this kid fighting for another championship. And, if Khabib still got the belt, that's going to be a great fight because I think they're very similar. You know what I mean? Like, Kevin Lee beat Barboza the same way Khabib did. You know what I mean? In dominating fashion, just ground and pound, just mauling you. So, dude, I respect Kevin Lee. I think he's not as cocky. He's not a clown anymore. Like, I like the way he presented himself during fight week. So, props to him. Can't wait to see what he does in the future. Next up, we had Derek Lewis, Blagoy, Ivanov, heavyweight showdown. Obviously, everyone tunes in to see Derek Lewis because it only takes him one punch to friggin' put the lights out on people. Overall, pretty competitive fight. Blagoy kind of brought it to Lewis. I thought it was a great fight. They were both throwing bombs. Blagoy was just taking everything Lewis, gave to him. Took him down a couple times, did his thing. Overall, there's no knockouts in this fight, but it was a great heavyweight fight. These guys didn't gas out, right? Lewis ended up getting the split decision there, which I think some people are surprised about, but I don't know. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it was a good fight. It was a split decision. I'm kind of excited to see what happens next. I saw on Instagram, it looks like they might be setting up a fight between him and Curtis Blades.
Yes.
I think it would be a fun one.
I saw that. Yeah, I mean, the thing with that, I did see Blades called him out. The thing with that is Blades he's ridiculous at wrestling, right?
Yeah.
I just don't want to see another like DC Derek Lewis where it's just he just gets taken down, he gets choked out, whatever. But again, that's what makes Derek Lewis so fun is that, you look at the Alexander Volkov fight, right? He was getting his ass kicked for 3 rounds. And with the final 20 seconds, he knocks out Volkov. And, it's just he presents and he has that kind of power with every punch, you know what I mean? And when he doesn't gas, he's one of the most dangerous humans on earth.
Yeah.
So, super excited to see what comes from that. Next, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Vicente Luque. What a fight. Fight of the night. Props to both of these guys because they brought an absolute war. Stephen Thompson, who, comes back from getting just KO'd stiff by Anthony Pettis. Fighting against Vicente Luque, who's been on an absolute tear, who is coming off like back-to-back wars with Brian Barberina, and then the Mike Perry war that he was just in, where Mike Perry's nose was friggin' sideways. This guy has had like 2 fight of the year, contentions, and now coming to this one, Stephen Thompson just showing off like why he's still one of the best welterweights in the world, why he challenged for the belt 2 times. he was throwing everything at Luque, and Luque is just showing how tough he is. So what did you think about that overall performance?
Yeah, for Thompson, he looked great. You know, in all the striking exchanges, the way he was mixing it up, his conditioning, everything, his output, he looked real good. And, you know, like you said, Luque, tough. You know, he got my attention in that Mike Perry fight.
Yep.
Because they were both just battering each other, and he ended up getting the win. But, yeah, I'm excited to see what he's got coming in the future as well.
Yeah, he's another young kid, right? Obviously, he just lost to a gritty veteran, but it's like, dude, you need those tests. He was on like a 6-fight winning streak, so he'll be back. I'm excited to see him, man. And then just with Wonderboy, it puts him back into contention. I know he suffered that loss to Anthony Pettis, but I mean, to come back and have a performance like that against a young guy, up and comer. So, and he's just the nicest dude in the world. Like he even said it. He fought for the nicest motherfucker belt, which is hilarious. Like I love him. Yeah, he's so respectful, dude. And I've been a fan of him since day one. All his Woodley fights, the title fights, everything like that. So excited to see those two guys in the future there. And then we come to the co-main event where we had Kelvin Gastelum versus Darren Till. Darren Till's first fight at middleweight. He's coming up from welterweight. The weight cut for him to get down to welterweight was, I don't even know how he did it.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's so big. He's such a huge guy. Him coming in at 170, like just to think that he's 10 pounds heavier than me, it makes no sense.
No sense. They would show videos of him just absolutely trying. He's just killing himself making this weight. Personally, I believe that it had a very big effect on his chin. Obviously his past 2 fights, his title fight with Woodley and then the Jorge fight, it definitely showed. Like he kind of lost his chin in both those fights. And that's what weight cut does to you. I know we talked about this on one of our first episodes. It's like it friggin' drains you.
Yeah.
You can't just condition that chin to work like that. So he went up in weight. And, dude, I mean, he looks good. Listen, a lot of people are criticizing the co-main event. It wasn't an exciting fight. I think these guys are both a little tentative. Kelvin obviously coming off a fight of the year contender with the champ Israel Adesanya, and he gave him a run for his money. You know what I mean? Kelvin's a great fighter, man. I think a lot of people really underestimate him. I think a lot of people respect him after that Israel fight just because he brought it to him. But, dude, I thought Darren came in with a good game plan. He played his fight. He didn't, kind of bait into Kelvin's, game plan here. He used his jab well. He didn't let Kelvin, get close to him. Again, overall, not the most exciting fight in the world, but I mean, you look at someone like Till, who was on a 2-fight skid. People wrote him off as well. He's young. Now he's right back in contention. He bursted into. He's now a top 5 middleweight in the world, which is crazy. So I don't know. What do you think about those two guys?
Yeah, it's another tough fight for him. Fighting Kelvin Gastelum, who just fought for the title, moving up in weight. It's a lot. And, like you said, coming off the 2 losses that he had, he got choked out by Woodley. And then, it was a pretty brutal knockout with Masvidal.
Yeah.
So you get those 2 in the back of your mind. You're moving up in weight, and you're fighting against a guy who just fought for the title. It's a lot of pressure. So, I think he had to fight this one smart, had to think it out a little bit more. Maybe had to fight a little bit more cautious. But, yeah, he got the win. He looked good. I definitely outpointed him. And, yeah, hopefully he stays at 185 and, can avoid that weight cut and, make a run at the title in this division.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And one thing that really caught, I think, everyone's attention was that, after the fight, he was doing all his interviews and he was like, listen, I was scared shitless to go in there. He goes, I wanted to fake an injury because I was so scared. And, yeah. I loved how real he was because it's like you don't see that side of fighters, right? Like you get knocked out once, get knocked out twice. Like I can't even imagine what that does to your confidence. As someone like Till, who was an undefeated fighter, and then to just lose 2 straight in like dramatic fashion like that, like I know that definitely takes a toll on you. And for him to come out and be like, listen, I'm scared to go in that octagon. I think he earned a lot of people's respect. He had a big fan base behind him, all the Liverpool fans, everything like that. But now there's a lot of people, fans, fighters coming out and being like, he's a real one for saying that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I respect the shit out of that. And then he goes off and he says, talking about Yoel, how much of a beast he is, and he's like, "Fuck no, I don't want to fight him. He's an absolute monster." And then he calls him out the next day on an Instagram post. So that's a fun one next. I mean,
Yeah.
Yoel and Darren Till, sign me up for that one, dude.
Yeah. That'd be a fun fight. Yeah, Till's got a lot of options. You know, beating Gastelum, who's, I don't even know what he's ranked at this point, but he's got to be top 5 in that division.
Yep.
Well, yeah, it puts him in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, Till now is the number 5 middleweight in the world. So, you know, people don't like that performance, but he just skyrocketed up the rankings. He's now number 5. Like you said, he's got plenty of options right now. So excited for both those guys. I know Kelvin's going to be back. He'll get another big fight soon, and, you know, he's going to be fine. So excited to see what Till's next move is, because I know the UFC backs him a lot. He's a young guy. Obviously, he's got Liverpool behind him, so he's always going to be in the biggest fights. So cool. And then we come to the final fight. We got the main event. We got the BMF title. Jorge Gamebred Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. Baddest motherfucker title. Listen, personally, I don't think the fight disappointed. I thought it was everything a BMF title should be. You know, you got The Rock walking out. The place is going absolutely nuts. Not one person was sitting down during it. We had Jorge Masvidal, you know, TKOing, doctor stoppage over Nate Diaz going into round 4. You know, Nate had just a massive cut over his eyebrow. Yeah. Doctor comes in, waves it off. People are pissed. People are saying it's tainted, whatever. It could have went on. Yeah. Personally, just kind of going over my thoughts. You know, Jorge pieced Nate up for 3 rounds. Yeah. Some of those were 10-8 rounds. But it's just the fact that, like, Nate, I don't even think he looked phased by any of that. Like, he took, like, when Jorge first knocked him down, he took that head kick. Like, no other human being on planet Earth could take that head kick and just get up and just smile. And it's like, the guy's not human. Do I think that the fight would be different if it went 2 more rounds? No. But do I think that it would have been way more entertaining? Yes, 100%. Because I think I don't think you could knock out Nate Diaz. Other than Josh Thompson, whatever, that was a long time ago. That fight was just going to be fight of the century written all over it. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you saw the picture, but there was like a comparison of Nate in that fight, the cut over his eye, and then the cut in the Pettis fight. And it was like the same thing. And people brought that up, and I don't know. I know New York Athletic Commission is different than most states, so it kind of sucks. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on kind of the fight itself, but as well as the stoppage and stuff?
Yeah, leading up to the fight, Masvidal was saying that he had to finish him, and the way he came out, the way he was throwing his kicks and the punches that he threw a really nice elbow in the clinch. Just everything just had bad intentions behind it. Like, you could tell he was going for the knockout. When he said that, he absolutely meant it. End of the first round, he got that knockdown. He basically soccer kicked Diaz in the head, and he just kept on fighting like it was nothing. Like it was a soft jab or something, which is crazy. But Masvidal was definitely getting the better of the exchanges. And that's not to say that Nate didn't have his moments too, because he's fights high output, throws a lot of punches, and he's actually pretty accurate too. But Masvidal is definitely winning on the feet. I like the stoppage as well.
Really,
Nate wanted to keep on fighting. The fans wanted the fight to continue, but you got to protect yourself. You got to know, when you get a little bit of a cut, you got to protect it, because you can't leave it up to the doctor. They're going to protect you if you're not protecting yourself. So that I think 4th, 5th round, that cut was only going to get worse. And I was, Nate's a slow starter. Yeah. So first round, I understand it. 2nd round, I get it. But 3rd round, it just looked to be more the same. And I think 4th and 5th round would have been the same way. But yeah, I hope they fight again. We just saw Nate hint at retirement on Instagram.
Yeah.
And he's not the type to bullshit either, because he did just take a 3-year layoff.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I hope he doesn't do that, because he's in the prime of his career right now. And take another 3 years off. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to kind of go off your thing, I know you agree with the stoppage. I didn't as much. I just look at the Diaz brothers, and I know how, I guess their scar tissue is like different than every other human being. I loved how Nate said it. Nate goes, if you sneeze on me, I'll bleed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So personally, I just wanted to see 2 more rounds because that was such a fun fight. You could tell how disappointed. That's why I respect Jorge, because he even looked so disappointed. He was like, no, I wanted to baptize this guy. You know what I mean? He kept saying, I wanted to baptize him. But just overall, just for the fans, isn't it ironic that the BMF title, baddest motherfucker title, was stopped due to cuts? That's just kind of like how I feel about it. It's like a very ironic way for it to be stopped,
Yeah, you got to think too, though, like, if that cut were to get any worse and it end up being an injury to his eye that's going to last, a lifetime or a really long time, it's going to impair his vision and impair future fights for him. That would be pretty unfortunate. So for that reason, I like that they stopped the fight, but yeah, Nate definitely wanted to keep going. I wanted to see the fight continue, but I understand the stoppage.
Yeah, and then I know you kind of hinted on, the whole rematch thing. I know Nate, put out that he's retiring. My Twitter was pretty active. I tweeted out, on a serious note, when's Nate Diaz coming back, right? And everyone kind of had the same answer. They were all like, when the UFC opens up their checkbook for the Conor McGregor trilogy, which I think that's a no-brainer. I think that's the last fight that he fights in the UFC. I think they do the trilogy. I don't know when, but him and Conor need to fight for the 3rd time because, the first 2 fights were instant classics. The second fight was, a fight of the year candidate. So I just think it just has to happen. And that's other than the Jorge rematch, I think that's the biggest money fight for Nate. I think if Nate and Jorge ran it back, he's going to make a ton of money off that, but he's going to make millions off of Conor McGregor. And I think that's kind of what he's stating at in his post, being like, when the UFC comes knocking with the McGregor rematch, when he's done, doing his 3 fights next year, whatever he says he's going to do, you come find me. We'll promote the hell out of this, and we'll make another, BMF title, whatever the hell they want to do there. And then next for Jorge, I know you're writing your blog on this, but I'll let you kind of start. What do you think's next for Jorge? Do you think he does, another fight? Do you think he fights for the title? What do you think?
I think he respects Nate enough to try to get the rematch as soon as possible. But, in the post-fight interview, it didn't really seem like Dana was really interested in that fight happening again anytime soon. So I think that's why Nate's kind of pissed off too, because, first, during fight week, he had the whole USADA thing saying that he failed the drug test. Still don't even really understand all the details of it. But anyway, he had that coming in the fight week. Then he has the fight, gets stopped short, which, again, something that he doesn't agree with. In the after-fight interview in the octagon, he says he wants the rematch. And then Dana comes out and says that the rematch isn't going to happen. Yeah, that's not what's next for Jorge. So I think all of those factors together led to that post of him announcing the retirement, him just being kind of fed up. Yeah. Hopefully he gets over it pretty soon. But yeah, back to Jorge. So he does have a lot of options. He's got that Nate rematch, which, spark a lot of interest. But a lot of people will tune in again to watch that one. Him and Conor have been going back and forth on Twitter, in interviews. That's another option. And the last one, which I think is the best option for him, is fighting for the title. So they got Kamaru Usman fighting Colby Covington next. Winner of that, I think he should fight. The Usman, him versus Usman, isn't as attractive as him versus Colby, because him and Colby have the whole backstory.
Yeah.
But I think it's the best option for him right now, because with the Diaz fight, that's always going to be interesting for the fans. That's always going to be a fight that people are going to want to see. And I think Nate deep down does want that fight back. So I think that's one that he can keep in the back pocket. The McGregor fight, actually, I saw a post that they did sign it. They did reach an agreement on the Cerrone fight. I don't know if that's true or not. But
So apparently January 18th is signed. It's signed, sealed, delivered. They're just not naming the opponent. Apparently it's Cowboy, but it's not announced. It could be someone else for all we know. It could be friggin' Gaethje. I hope it is. Okay.
Yeah, so the only thing with the Conor fight is that, you know, he's been inactive.
Yeah.
He's only had one fight at 170. He lost his last fight. He has to win this next one for that fight to make sense to Masvidal.
Oh, yeah.
You know, financially, it'll make sense no matter what. But in terms of, you know, like legacy for all that, if Conor loses and Jorge signs to fight him and he beats Conor after he just lost again, it doesn't really have the same effect if, you know, Conor's kind of back into it. He's on like a little winning streak or whatever.
Yep.
So I don't like that fight. And Dana has come out and he said he doesn't like that fight either. He doesn't think that Conor should fight at 170.
I think he's too much man for him.
Yeah.
According to Jorge.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the title fight is what he should go for next, because, you know, it's going to reward him pretty well financially, and then it puts him in control. You know, he's going to have more of a say of who his opponents are and aren't, because he holds the title. So I think that's the best option for him. Keep the Nate fight in your back pocket, and Conor only if he wins.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Jorge, he's been in the UFC for friggin' years. He's fought everyone and their mother. He said it himself. He's had his ups, he's had his downs. He's got the most friggin' split decision losses out of anyone we know, right?
Yeah.
He put on an absolutely brilliant performance against Nate. He's got the BMF title, right? He's got the most eyes on him that he's ever going to have in his life because of this, you know, the BMF fight. And now it's time for him to fight for the real belt. You know what I mean? I think Colby Usman, you know, as much as no one actually wants to see that fight because it's going to be so goddamn boring, he deserves it, man. The guy has been putting in his work for years. You know, he's not really a trash talker. He never made himself look like an idiot or, you know, put on an act for anyone. He was always real, right? Yeah. And I think he should get what he deserves financially and get himself a shot at the belt, right? Whether that's Usman, Colby. Obviously, everyone wants to see the Colby fight. Like you said, they got the backstory. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, either way, he's fighting literally the same fighter. Usman and Colby are the same exact fighter. One's going to have a little more hype behind it, but, you know, kind of like I just said, Jorge's, he's got the most eyes on him in the UFC right now, probably other than, you know, Khabib, right? Mm-hmm. They were able to build up this belt for him. And, yeah, I think the only logical move for him next is he holds out until he gets a title fight. You know, I know he kind of, in that fight really, I didn't think he got hit that much by Nate, right? Nate had his moments in that fight, but relatively, you know, I think that was an easy night in the office for him. Why not sit out for the next couple months, you know, count the money that you just made from the BMF title and then fight the winner of Colby Usman, you know, first quarter next year, right? So I just think he has so many options now, man. It's like, good for him. It took him a long time to get to where he is, but he's going to be fighter of the year this year. He had an absolutely ridiculous year, from just, you know, going across seas to friggin' London to knock out Darren Till, you know, when everyone was against him, to beating friggin' Ben Askren, the undefeated, untouchable fighter who's never been knocked down or anything, flatlining him, Flatline MMA, flatlining him within 5 seconds, shocking the world there, and then beating one of the most loved fighters in the UFC, Nate Diaz, showing how tough he is. Honestly, showing everyone how friggin' good his boxing was, because I knew he was great at boxing. He had great technique. His boxing was so sharp there, man. Like, so friggin' sharp. So for him, hey, he just made a ton of money. Sit out for the next couple months. Negotiate a nice contract to fight for the belt and just kind of do your thing. And then Nate, wait till the Conor fight. That's really what I think. So, but so many options for both of those guys. Nate, I know he's not retired. He's coming back. He's not going to take a nice laugh. He wants that McGregor money. And I know McGregor wants that McGregor money if he fights Nate Diaz, because that's the biggest fight to make. So, but cool. Overall, UFC 244, great night. It was very hyped up, very anticipated. It delivered, obviously, other than the ending, which a lot of people were disappointed. A lot of people thought, it was the right call. I know you thought it was the right call. Overall, great night, UFC. Thank you. They never disappoint when they come to New York, right? And then just final topic, just wanted to go over this real quick just because it's happening on Saturday. UFC Moscow, 2 very good fights. In the co-main event, we have Alexander Volkov facing Greg Hardy. And then in the main event, we have our hometown boy, fan favorite, Methuen Mass, Calvin Kattar, takes on, virtually the untouchable, the man, the myth, the legend, Zabit. I don't even want to say his last name. Friggin' Magomed Shapirov, whatever the hell his name is.
That's pretty good.
That was actually pretty good. I did that without looking, I think. But originally we were supposed to have, it was JDS pulled out of the fight. Greg Hardy steps in. Literally, he just fought at UFC Boston literally a month ago, taking on Volkov, who was an absolute savage. So props to Greg Hardy, because you just fought. You just had a controversial win taken away from you due to using your inhaler. That fight originally was supposed to be the main event. Now Hardy versus Volkov is the co-main event. Kattar versus Zabit is the main event. But what sucks about it is that Kattar versus Zabit isn't a 5-round fight. So it's only a 3-round fight due to how short the time was. So for everyone that thinks that's going to be a 5-round fight, it's not. It's a 3-round fight. I have my opinions on that I'll bring up in a little bit. But going to the co-main event, Kev, what do you think about Hardy stepping in on short notice, facing a beast like Volkov?
I think it's a great opportunity for him to fight one of the top guys in the heavyweight division. But I don't know if it was the best decision, especially with the way he fought in his last one. UFC Boston was just, what was that, less than a month ago?
Less than a month ago, yeah.
And he gassed out pretty good in that fight. Now, I think it's not going to be an early night for him. He's going to have to get into the second, third round with this guy. And I don't know, you can't improve your conditioning that quick. You can't do it over a couple of weeks. So I think he's going to try to get the early knockout. But Volkov, I think he's going to come out with the win. He's got great striking. He looked, even though his last fight a loss? Was that against Derek Lewis?
Yeah, that was UFC 229, where he was just beating the shit out of Lewis for 3 rounds, and then he gets knocked out in the final 10 seconds.
Yeah, he looked great that entire fight. He was on his way to a win. Last 10 seconds gets caught, and gets knocked out. But yeah, I think his striking is better than Hardy. As long as he doesn't get caught with a power shot, I think he can get that win.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going off your point when you first said it's a great opportunity for Hardy, right? He has had such a controversial yet quick rise in the UFC, right? Dude, this is going to be his 5th fight this year. All respect to the man, right? Not a lot of fighters in history have done 5 fights in 1 year in the UFC. I know in other organizations maybe, but UFC, there's only been a handful of guys to do 5 fights in 1 year. He's had such a quick rise, such a controversial rise with, illegal strikes. He's gotten no contest off those, using his hailer in fights. Obviously, his whole backstory, with the domestic abuse, all that stuff, domestic violence, whatever. No one likes him. So he has a great opportunity to go to Russia, knock out one of their own, and gain the respect of not only the other fighters, because even the other fighters don't respect him, but fans. And maybe he can start building a fan base behind him. Because, dude, this guy used to be a professional football player, right? He played for the Cowboys, right? He has a great opportunity here to gain a ton of new fans, to gain respect from the MMA community. Do I think he can do it? I don't know. I wrote this blog. I don't know, but the reason why this sport is so awesome is that anything can happen.
Yeah.
Just like in that Lewis fight, he was getting his ass kicked and he wins when 10 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
Would I love to see Hardy win? Obviously not. I don't want to see him win because I don't like what he did prior to his UFC career and his NFL career, right? But I don't know. We did a poll. There was a decent amount of people that think he could be knocked out. And I did put out this tweet and it had a ton of activity. I said, would you be surprised if Greg Hardy knocked out Volkov? A lot of responses saying, hey, we don't know what Volkov's going to look like coming off that knockout of Derek Lewis. It's been a while since he fought, all that stuff. So, overall, do I think he can win? I don't know. Do I want him to win? No, absolutely not. But this is the perfect opportunity for him too, because he's stepping up in competition. I respect the fact that he's stepping up against, a top 10 opponent, which he wanted. But other than that, I think it's going to be a great fight, to be completely honest. So we'll see Volkov coming off that knockout. We'll see what Hardy can do after, the quick turnaround there. So we'll see there. And then the main event, which I'm so freaking excited about. I know you're excited. Calvin Kattar, Boston's own, our guy. We're going to get you on the show one day, Calvin, I'm telling you. Facing Zabit, who Zabit's had a pretty historic rise in the UFC too. He's kind of, got that like Khabib-like status where, really unblemished. I know he's got that one loss, but it was like, back in the day. He's really been untested. He's had some great fights with the likes of guys like, Bochniak. Jeremy Stevens had a really good fight with him. But overall, Zabit's the kind of guy, he's a very calm fighter. He does things differently. He's not a pressure fighter. He's going to be using a lot of kicks, a lot of stuff that you don't see, right? That's why I think the fight with him and Yair Rodriguez was going to be so interesting, because those two guys have very similar styles. And I know in the Jeremy Stevens fight, I think Jeremy Stevens was even said afterwards, he was like a little taken back with everything that was going on with Zabit. And then you saw that in the Yair Rodriguez fight with Jeremy Stevens too, kind of the same thing, right? And then you got Kattar on the other side. Calvin Kattar just he's had a great UFC run so far. I think he's one of the toughest guys in that division. His boxing is ridiculous. And personally, I think he's going to knock out Zabit and he's going to shock the world. So what do you think about that? This main event's just going to be absolutely fire.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I wished it happened in Boston, but
yeah.
I love Kattar for just taking the fight in Moscow. He was going to have a fight in his hometown, got that taken away from him, and now he's going over to Russia to fight this guy in his hometown, and just had no complaints or anything like that about it. So a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, Joe Giannetti, who was on our show, right, said that Kattar accepted this fight in Moscow within like minutes. Like Dana called him and was like, hey, we're going to do this fight in Moscow. And Kattar was just like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Like, that's badass right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. But, yeah, it's an interesting fight. Zabit's really unique, and he doesn't really have weaknesses anywhere. We've, seen him on his feet, throwing all sorts of crazy kicks. His striking's really good, really smooth, really different. It's hard to get a good read on him because there's not a lot of fighters that fight like him. And on the ground, too, he's just as good. There's really no weaknesses in his game. He had that crazy knee bar submission a couple fights ago that I think has only happened twice in the UFC. But, yeah, really creative. pretty good conditioning too. You know, he's only fighting 3-round fights so far. He's won the distance, and I think most of them. He's winning a lot of decisions.
Yep.
Not really knocking people out, but yeah, he's got some submissions on his record. Then Kattar, you know, like you said, his boxing is top notch. He's just knocking people out. He's got 3 knockouts out of his 5 fights in the UFC. He's got 1 decision that he lost. And he won a decision in his debut.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he can win. You know, it's something that you can. Zabit's the type of opponent that you can't fully prepare for because he's just so different. And but I think if Kattar uses his boxing, fights at a boxing range, it takes away Zabit's kicks. And he's got enough power in his hands to knock out anybody. And I think that's going to be the difference in the fight for him. If he can keep it at a boxing distance, keep himself off the cage, and just turn it into a dirty boxing match and try to stay off the mat too. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. We'll see if Zabit wants to stand with him. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, super excited. And, you know, for those of you who may not know, Calvin Kattar, just look up some of his highlights. Look up the Shane Burgos knockout, violent knockout, and then just look up his most recent one against Ricardo Lamas, who Ricardo Lamas is constantly a top 5, top 10 fighter in the UFC. He kills him. Another just unreal violent knockout from him. The dude is so humble. He's so like about where he came from and all that stuff, and that's why everyone loves him. He's working his way up the ranks, and just like with Hardy, how you said he had a great opportunity in front of him, Kattar has a chance to beat a guy who a lot of people are trying to say can beat Max Holloway right now. A lot of people think Zabit is the guy to dethrone Max Holloway just because how different he is and stuff like that. I think this fight could be, you know, a number 1 contender fight.
Yeah.
Who knows? Just because I know Kattar's like number 11 right now, whatever. But to fight a guy like Zabit and beat him, you know, having not been really tested too much in the UFC, great opportunity for both guys. Because obviously, if Zabit, you know, wins this, I think he's 1 step closer to the title as well. But you know, overall, I think this main event is going to be one of the best fights of the year here. I'm hoping just for a knockout. I want to see Kattar just knock out the hometown guy. Can you imagine? That's like a Rocky story, going to Russia, knocking out the big, powerful Russian. You know, great opportunity. Obviously, us being from Boston, we're rooting for him. Not even trying to be biased here, but we're rooting for him. Like you said, I think what he did was so badass going there, not even questioning really Dana White or anything.
Mm-hmm.
He could have fought in his backyard, but he chose to fly across the world to Russia and face a man that, you know, no one in the UFC has been able to figure out. Yeah. So, Calvin Kattar, you're a beast. Zabit, I know you're a beast too. Hope you guys put on an absolutely unreal fight for the fans in Moscow, because I know that place. I don't know if you saw any of the videos from like the weigh-ins or anything like that. The place is absolutely berserk. The Russian fans, I know you can't friggin' understand a word that they're saying, but they're very passionate. Even Kattar said it when he got off the scale. He goes, I love you, like the Russian fans. Like, you guys are, you know, passionate. You guys are a fighting nation. Like, respect to you. So Moscow's in for a friggin' treat, man. So UFC 244, unreal fight card. UFC Moscow on Saturday. Exciting weekend coming up. You know, not a ton of, you know, new news in the MMA world over the past week, but you know, we're keeping it coming. We're putting out content. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Flatline MMA, Instagram, Flatline MMA, Twitter, Flatline MMA. We're putting out content daily, weekly, however you want. These videos, continue putting these out. And yeah, until next time, Flatline MMA. Peace.